One of the things that we've been kind of discussing over, the last couple weeks is just kind of like the eBay versus, whatever hustle. And we still don't have a proper name for that because
Yeah.
we're anti hustle, at least at this point in our life. We want to do less of a hustle.
We'd rather do the hustle than to hustle.
Actually, we need to think about what's an even slower dance than the hustle. But
Uh-huh.
anyway, one of the things, and the reason why, and I'll go into this at a later date, but part of the reason why we have the name Leanstead is because we were trying to lean up our lives and lean up
We're
our,
trying.
yeah, we're still trying.
We are trying.
And so,
I think we're going to be leaning up for it till after we're gone.
but part of the reason why we wanted to lean up is because there's some stuff that we wanted to do that in order to do it, we needed more time, free time. And one of the things was, for lack of a better word, homesteading, and probably there's people hear the word homesteading, there's varying levels of what that is. So a simplified version is that we were trying to step by step grow our own food. And part
Or
of
a
that,
portion of it.
yeah, well, whatever we could, Now, we took on too much, but we should have baby stepped that, and we should have 1%ed that, and we got super excited about it. Watched too much YouTube, so keep that in mind when you're watching us. And thought, hey, if they can do it, we can do it, kind of deal. And never mind the fact that they might have been doing it 7 years or 12 years or whatever else.
Yeah. I think we need to keep that in mind with eBay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just because of what I was just saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, with eBay, I see people all the time. They're just getting started, and they're about to have a come apart. But I mean, they literally hadn't even been doing it 30 days. So it takes a minute,
People on eBay, or I mean,
People
on
who are eBay sellers
eBay sellers.
that are part of Facebook groups.
Facebook groups. Okay. I thought you said YouTube.
Nope. I said they're having a come apart.
Mm-hmm.
And they've only been doing it for like 30 days or so. So it takes a minute, but sometimes, just like we were guilty of taking on too much stuff with the homestead, you go from living in the city to buying 26 acres, and we don't have any equipment, and we didn't grow up on farms.
No.
And so, everything, our grandparents who would know about the stuff are not with us, and so we couldn't like reach out to them. So, we were learning everything the hard way and got super fired up about certain things and had a lot of fun. But also, it's not easy work. The reason why
No.
people are, walking around grocery stores is because it's easy.
Yeah. It is a lot easier to go to Walmart and buy chicken that is already processed and cut up and cooked for you if you want. So
Yeah, and not not poking fun at anybody, but there's a large group of people that I think realize that the chicken they bought in the pack actually used to be alive at some point. They just think it came from the factory, whatever that means. So, we were going through Aldi or Monday afternoon, and I was just kind of hanging back, watching people. And
you do a lot of people watching at Aldi.
I do, because it's less frustrating to watch you go around in circles when you go around the fruit stand when we need to be going up and down the aisles. And you're doing circles.
I have produce
You go
on
down
my
there and
list
come
all
back.
together.
So
So I knock out the produce section all at one time.
I choose not to.
That's fine. Okay, so you were watching people.
So I'm watching people instead of my wife. And, they're just running around grabbing stuff. Often,
Because they don't have a list.
often they don't have a list. But they often stay in the rows and go down and come back, and don't get distracted by the other stuff that's on the other side of the road. But I was thinking, you know what? There's very few people in this building. Probably, 1% if we're lucky, who would survive if there wasn't grocery stores. And we were talking about a time overseas where we would go get groceries, and it was a tiny little store.
Yeah.
Tiny.
It wasn't as big as like a normal gas station.
Yeah, it was like just a,
Yeah.
it was bigger than a bedroom, but
Not much.
But not much.
Uh-huh.
And that's where we went every week and got what we needed. But, the problem now is that, it's quick, it's cheap, but remember the three things. You can't have good, quick, and cheap. So
You can have two, but not all three.
nobody thinks about the third option. They got the quick and they got the cheap, which normally means that what we're getting,
It's not good.
is not good. They have no idea. Oh, well, this is, X dollars a pound. This is so much cheaper than buying it from a farmer. Well, if you've ever watched any videos where people actually pick up their chicken in a store and walk over to a place and weigh it and realize what the package says and what the scale says are two different things.
Oh.
But not only that, but how much, say, chicken or something like that, that saline water is getting pumped into them.
Yeah.
So
when you're purchasing frozen meats, especially frozen chicken, that's an issue. Like it can be up to, 30% of the weight could be salt water.
So, maybe we're deceived at how cheap it supposedly is. Maybe we're just getting, robbed that way. But the problem is the number three, which we should really be thinking about, is that actually good for me? So, case in point, we try our best when we're outsourcing to take our lunch, which is usually like some rolled up meat and some cheese and that kind of stuff. But occasionally, especially if we go to Aldi, like this week they had this big monster bag of bugles, which is dangerous. And we knew it was dangerous. And
We did it anyway.
and, one of us caved. It was me. But I've been thinking about it all week because they were there last week.
Oh.
And, when we eat the stuff that we bring, I'm fine during the day. In fact, coming home, I'm all
Ready to get to work.
I'm ready to get to work, and somebody's over in the passenger seat asleep, but I'm awake. But we had a bunch of bugles, that we pulled the bag out, opened it up immediately. We ate a bunch of those and stopped somewhere else, and about halfway home, I was about ready to fall asleep.
You got home and you were burnt.
And that because we eat better than we used to, those kind of things have a major negative impact on my day.
And you don't notice it until you get away from it. It's like when you start reducing the amount of sugar in your diet, and you don't realize how jittery and how much you struggle with glucose spikes, and when you have that removed and you experience consistency, then you're like, oh, okay. Then you think that you can handle, a milkshake from, a drive-through or whatever until you get it, and then it just like totally messes up your system.
Yeah. And if you're like us, that's what we did, especially when we were both employed full time.
And a lot of
There was a whole lot
quick.
of drive-through stuff and convenience store stuff, and everything that I was putting in my body is probably the reason why I'm having the health issues I'm having today.
No doubt.
And is why I ended up with type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure and everything else that now what the doctor wants to do is give you a bunch of drugs to take, and I can't stand taking anything. I already have to take more than I want to take, and so part of the process was what do I need to do so that I don't have to take all that. And it's still a struggle for us, but that was kind of the beginning of our lean stead journey was, okay,
What I
this,
eat really does matter.
yeah, I mean, for instance, the number of things that have sugar in it that you have no idea. I mean, for me, maybe everybody knew this, but I was, what, in my 30s or so before I realized that there was sugar in peanut butter. Like, I didn't have any idea. In fact, I thought peanut butter was like super good for you, kind of deal. So, that being said, we were watching homesteaders on YouTube, and a lot of them were doing it because they were changing their diet. One guy was like he's pretty sickly, and he was trying all kinds of different things, and he became more and more obsessed with growing his own food, and that's had a huge impact on his health. In fact, the other guy,
Yeah,
there was at least two of them that we know of. They were having health issues, and for the most part,
Well, a third one that was having not mental issues, but anxiety issues.
true,
And a lot of that was resolved with
Just
changing his diet.
changing his diet. So the problem is that we want quick and easy, and we don't think about the fact that this is like it's
costing us.
compounding problems. Because then once you start taking all this medication, then you can't stop. You have to stay
Yeah.
on it. Your body's, jacked up from that point on. So
Yeah, I recently heard someone discuss like immune issues. Like your body system is like different chains, and like when you address one system, you weaken the chains in the other systems. And so by working on your cardiovascular system with some medication or a treatment or something, typically what happens is that another system gets compromised. And then when you address that one, it compromises something else. So you just have everything is connected, and you can't just resolve one ache or one imperfection in your body system without compromising others.
and the older we get, the more pronounced a lot of this stuff is, and
Yeah.
we've already done a lot of damage that is not irreversible. No, wait, it's not reversible.
It's not reversible.
Yeah. But, every little bit that we can do, we're going to try to do. We just took on too much at once. And so, when it comes to homesteading, and we haven't like written homesteading off. We just kind of have we're just contemplating a reboot because we jumped in with both feet, both hands, all hands on deck kind of still. And it's not as easy when you're older. It is also if it's just the two of you, versus when you have a family, multi-generational scenario, interest in it. Everybody kind of doing different things, but if you're on your own, like it's exhausting.
It
Can be.
is. I think it's very similar to the starting out like you're going to be a big business, or actually starting out remembering that your business is going to grow, but you need to grow this in a way that older you, 10-year older you, can maintain it. And the homesteading needs to be done the same way, incrementally and with aging in place in mind.
Yeah, because for instance, our struggle with eBay is that we're like, man, if I can get this listing done faster, then what I can do is I can double the amount of listings I do, instead of looking at it as what do I need to do, what are my needs, not what do I want. That's a whole bunch of extra stuff that's distracting me from whatever God's calling me to do, but what do I need only. So if we'd looked at, say, the raising animals part as what do we need, because we fell into the same trap. We were like, we went to go get one pig, and that turned into two, which we came home with four. My mindset was, well, how, like if I can get them cheaper by buying four instead of one, and then how much harder can it be if I'm feeding one, I can feed four at the same time. It's just an extra scoop. Well, there's a whole lot of things that start to compound. How much room, how much shelter, how much feed. Nobody does the math because a bunch of y'all bought pet dogs, and now you've got that dog feed that you have to pay for every week, month kind of deal, and you're like, oh my gosh, what have I done? So you got too many animals. Like we were going to the feed store all the time.
Yep.
I was still going, and then you get into processing. So we can process our own chickens, but like the pigs, nope. And so then you got to find a way to get them to the processor. And then once they're processed, you got to have freezers. We got 4 freezers, big freezers, running, costing us money, especially now since they're empty.
Most of them are empty.
Versus if we were said, this is how much we need for.
We need to work to define enough.
So, just like our scenario with eBay, you jump in and if you start doing a bunch of stuff, like I was just sourcing like a madman when we first started, and I had such a huge pile. I mean, it was so huge, and it was growing, not daily, but
Every weekly, it was.
it was getting up there.
Yeah.
And instead of me just going to get what I needed for the week.
Let's pace ourselves.
So, I mean, we're better at that now than we were. It's still a struggle, especially when you're like, oh, wow, that's a good deal. Oh, that's a good deal, kind of deal. I actually have to force myself not to go to other parts of the store, really, so I don't fall into that temptation.
I was proud of us this week because we had sourced really well the week before, and our expectations for the store that we went into were not great. Like, we knew what we were looking for, but we did end up finding a lot.
Of good stuff.
And we were able to look at each other before we left the store and say, we don't need to go
to another
to
store.
the second store.
Yeah.
We have
and
them
we
on
actually were pretty brutal. Probably still not brutal enough, but we were pretty brutal.
Yeah, compared to
And we put some stuff back. We still.
based on my photos from yesterday and the number of items that I found that had holes and missing buttons, I was like, okay, we weren't quite careful enough. But that was the week before.
Yeah, and that's part of it. But
Um,
so, where we struggled was we took on too many different animals. We didn't really work on the infrastructure. I did a bunch of temporary things that were great temporarily.
you can do a lot with pallets and what do you call the plastic panels?
Well, yeah, you can get there's corrugated metal versions of them, but these were the white plastic, shaped the same, but
Shaped the same, but they don't last as long as the metal.
well, they just
They dry out.
It's different. So there's, that's not what this is about. But there's arguments for one versus the other. Some of it just gets back into, cost and cheap and easy didn't necessarily get me great, but it did serve the purpose.
Serve the
at the
purpose.
time, kind of deal, and we used them in a bunch of different ways, but we never got to building the permanent infrastructure that we needed. I've got all the parts and pieces. It just never got built. And same with like growing the garden. We spent a lot of time working on a specific area, and it had, between all the things we did, the soil was
Very
ready,
well fertilized.
and we never planted anything in there. We got tons of seeds, and then I was like, okay, well, if I'm never going to plant anything in there, I'm gonna try the bucket system, and I bought all the stuff to do bucket and irrigation and all that kind of stuff, and those are still piled up
Yeah.
that I can use. So instead of buying 50 buckets, if I'd bought one bucket and planted something in it, I'd have done a whole lot better. than having 50 buckets and irrigation and the seeds and the starts. I
And
actually
no
bought-
tomatoes.
I bought starts that we just let die
Uh-huh.
because we took on too much.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to homesteading, I'm not saying that I need to come up with a different term, but for some people, wherever you live currently, there's things you can do. Like you could raise quail in your garage, and you can plant a small garden in your yard. You can do raised bed, and see if you actually like it. If you don't like the fact that there's birds chirping in the garage, then you probably don't need to get a farm. You probably don't need 26 acres. If you don't like the smell, think about that. If you don't like to go outside in the heat and piddle with your raised bed, think about it. There are new ways now that, interest me, but I have zero time to investigate them. Where
Hydroponics.
that you could have done some of the stuff with the right lights inside the garage and vertically and that kind of stuff. But anyway, all that to say
Yeah.
is you have to focus. So what were going to be the positives to homesteading were like self-sufficiency. So ultimately the goal was like we would never have to go to the grocery store, and that's what you hear all the YouTubers talk about. All this is from the farm. All this is from the farm. Well, not everything they need is from the farm, but you could do a lot more from growing it yourself. You know what it is. You know what you put into it. Now, just keep in mind, you're going to go against the grain of 99% of the people. Try going to a co-op, farmer's co-op, and start talking about, I want some stuff that's not all, jacked up, fertilized and GMO'd and all that kind of stuff, and they're going to look at you like you're speaking another language. So there's that. There is some physical activity in there, so keeping you active and that kind of stuff, but like it can be too much. It can be more than you can handle, and you can end up passed out in your yard, especially at our age. There is some creative fulfillment by planting, a tomato plant and stuff coming out, and you've pruned it, and you've got tomatoes, kind of deal. But the negatives is that there really is, if you think about the homesteading version, there's a high front end setup cost. And we didn't have the funds to do that. And so we rigged a lot of stuff up to make it work. And that's just not a long-term solution. And we never got to the point where we didn't really realize how much it's going to cost us. I mean, when you raise your own chicken or pig, don't do the math.
Oh, no, it's not cheaper.
It's not cheap. So the physical demands became, a little too much because of doing too many things at once. Had we maybe just started with chickens only, and chickens are like crack cocaine. Like you get a couple chicks, and next thing you know, you're after a couple more, and then you're after a couple more, and then your whole yard's full of chickens. There's a learning curve because most of us did not grow up on a farm. Most of us grew up going to Aldi. Well, we didn't even have Aldi. Most of us grew up going to the grocery store.
Yeah, so I said we didn't even have Walmart growing up.
Back then. The other part of it is we did raise, say, more pigs for the purpose of selling some of the meat, which we did. And we also had more chickens and layers, so we could, and we did sell some eggs kind of deal. But you're not going to make any money. Number one, people don't want to pay the cost. So if you start factoring how much you put into feed, and depending on the animal, like our animal is free ranged as much as possible, but we had still supplemental feed that was not cheap.
Not our pigs. Well,
they kind of. Kind of. And there's, like if you were just doing pigs, there's a whole nother thing about, getting scraps and we have friends that had a pumpkin farm, and we could
And
get,
we ended up with a pumpkin patch.
because we got tons of pumpkins that we were able to feed, and ended up now we're growing our own pumpkins. So there's a learning curve, and so you probably don't want to take on too much. It'd be good to have an overarching view of everything, but like let's not just try not to do all the things. But there is a much more unpredictable income compared to eBay, you know. And I'm not saying that we can say, because we would not have foretold having a bad week, but you might go months before you sell anything from a homestead. And what you sell, it may not cover the cost of nothing. So it takes a minute, and you got to be all in.
You do. I was about to say that the majority of any of the funds that we made from our homestead was not really income. It just helped to offset the cost of.
Yeah, at best, it made like processing our meat free. So we can't really say. I mean, you start talking about selling eggs, and especially if you're gonna put them in a carton, then just give it up. Like
Yeah.
by the time you did all that,
Except for today, I mean,
well, that's changing, but it was.
it is changing, and egg prices are coming down now. But when eggs were $5 in the grocery store, then
Yeah, but
and
we
we
did-
could produce them for less than that.
Yeah,
Then
if we could just get them, from the yard. So I would say that, if you're going to start that off, it's really just a matter of saying, I want something that's better for me, and from my yard, and I know what went into it. And it's cheaper than me going to a health food store where it's supposedly organic.
Well, I was about to say the investment that you're not going to save, if you're homesteading, you're not going to save money on the food. Like, you don't end up with chicken that's cheaper than what you could get at Walmart. What you do end up with is chicken that is better for your body, which in the long run means you're not going to spend money on medical bills, or less anyway. And that's where the investment is. Like, that's your savings, not in what you're spending on a weekly basis.
And, something to keep in mind is that, and we would have to tell people when they would come over to eat, say, prepare yourself. It's going to taste different.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, oh, this is so much
Very
better.
different. Yeah.
But you're not going to know that. And for some people, they're like, oh, this doesn't taste right, because they've grown up on getting the grocery store chicken. So, it doesn't look the same.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason. Our egg yolk is a whole lot darker than the yolks that you get at the
Yeah, a
store.
little pale.
So there's a lot to it, and even for us, we had to educate ourselves. Like, is this normal? Like, is it supposed to look like that? Is it supposed to taste like that? Are these eggs still good? I mean, do you realize that when you get farm fresh eggs, provided that you just don't wash them off when you get them, that you don't have to put them in the refrigerator? Heck, we didn't know. We got a stand right behind the camera right now that's full of eggs that
Never been in the refrigerator.
never been in the refrigerator, because they're farm fresh and not washed. So,
Some of them still have little feathers on them, and
so anyway, when you compare the two, since we just don't have it would just be us, to take on a full farm kind of deal. That's just not something we're going to be able to maintain. And so when you're comparing homesteading to eBaying, as far as making a living, eBaying, we started making money pretty quick out of the gate.
yeah.
Homesteading, if we're honest, just cost us money.
Yeah, it definitely is not a cash cow by any means. But with eBay, we easily make our money back, and we're in the positive
Yeah,
very quickly.
I can complain about a return, but like, wait till you have a cow die,
Yeah.
or, your crop, you don't grow anything because the weather's just not going to cooperate with, growing whatever. And you don't you spend a ton of money
Yeah.
to lose it. So, I'll eat some shipping every now and then. I'll be fine with it.
You'll live.
Yeah.
You'll live.
So anyway, without going in, if you have interest and want to know questions about homesteading, feel free to reach out to us, because we did spend quite a few years doing a lot of it. We are doing less, and now we're rethinking some parts and pieces. Still not quite there. And to be honest, the part of the reason why we considered eBay was to pay the bill so that we could do some homesteading. But
Just trying to get back to that right
Yeah.
level of how much, how much homesteading and eBay can you do at the right time?
at the same time,
Yeah.
and not going out and buying 4 pigs when you just need one. So, actually, one's never a good thing.
Yeah, one's not good, but when one is all you need,
But 75 chickens at a time versus, something to think about.
yeah.